Have you ever helped someone without expecting anything in return, only to realize later that one small act of kindness changed your entire life forever? Welcome to Stories of Hope, where real moments and quiet hearts often reveal the biggest surprises. Before we begin, let me ask, where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments below. It was one of those evenings where the sky just opened up without warning. Rain poured down in thick sheets, turning the city roads into rivers and the air into a blur of sound. People rushed for cover, umbrellas turned inside out, headlights barely cut through the storm. But amidst all that chaos, on the side of a quiet street near the edge of town, a woman stood next to her broken-down car. She looked completely lost. Her white blouse clung to her like second skin, soaked through by the rain, and her tight blue jeans were wet all the way up to the knees. Strands of her dark brown hair were stuck to her face as she tried to shield herself under the small cover of a tree. Her car had died, just stopped right there, and she didn't know a thing about engines. A few cars passed, but no one stopped. Most didn't even look. After all, who wants to step out in this kind of rain for a stranger? But then, a pickup truck slowed down. It was an old Chevy, paint chipped at the corners, the kind of truck that told a story just by the way it moved. From the driver's side stepped out a man, tall, soaked from the moment he hit the ground, with rolled-up sleeves and grease still fresh on his hands. He was young, probably early 30s, with soft brown eyes that had seen struggle but never lost their kindness. His name was Jack. Jack didn't ask too many questions. He didn't flirt or hesitate. He just walked up to her with a small nod and said, "Looks like trouble. Mind if I take a look?" The woman, startled at first, hesitated. Most people she met were either too pushy or too distant, but something about this man felt different. There was no judgment in his tone, no smugness, just a quiet, steady willingness to help. She nodded. It died. I don't know what happened." Jack kneeled beside the car in the mud, rain pouring over him like he didn't even notice. He popped the hood, asking her for the keys, and started working, right there on the side of the road, without a second thought about how wet he was getting. His hands moved with confidence, like they'd fixed 100 cars just like this one. She stood there, holding her arms around herself, watching him, and the longer she watched, the more something inside her softened. He didn't know who she was. He didn't ask. He didn't try to impress her. He just helped. 20 minutes later, Jack wiped his hands on a rag from his back pocket, glanced at her, and said, "Try it now." She turned the key. The engine coughed, then roared back to life like nothing had happened. Her eyes lit up with surprise. "You did it! I can't believe it!" Jack gave a modest shrug and smiled. "You were lucky. Just a loose wire, nothing serious." She reached into her purse instantly, pulling out a $100 bill. "Please take this. I mean it. You saved me." But Jack stepped back. "No need. Just glad I was passing by." She tried again. "At least let me get your number, if something goes wrong." But Jack was already walking back to his truck, waving her off with a smile. "Take care, all right?" And just like that, he was gone. No name, no phone number, just a man who helped because it was the right thing to do. But what Jack didn't know was who she really was. Her name was Olivia Hart, and she wasn't just some woman stranded in the rain. She was one of the youngest tech investors in the state, owner of a quiet fortune, living in a discreet mansion on the hill, outside town. No one knew because she never wanted them to. She dressed simple, she lived simple. But tonight, that simple mechanic had done something that even the wealthiest people in her life rarely did. He'd been kind, for no reason at all. As Olivia drove home, the engine humming beneath her and the storm beginning to fade, she couldn't stop thinking about him. about the quiet confidence in his voice, the way he didn't push or expect anything, the way he looked at her like a person, not a problem or an opportunity. And that night, as she lay awake in her warm bed, staring at the ceiling, she made a decision. She was going to find him, not to pay him, but to know him. Because something about that man, something told her, this wasn't the end of the story, it was only the beginning. The morning sun rose gently over the quiet hills, casting a golden hue across the town. But Olivia Hart had barely slept. Her thoughts were tangled, circling back to the stranger from last night, the mechanic with kind eyes and mud on his jeans, who walked away as if helping her was just part of his day. She had met countless men in polished suits who memorized her net worth before her name. But this man didn't even ask for her name, and yet he left a mark on her heart. She sipped her coffee slowly at her kitchen island, the sleek marble countertop, a stark contrast to the muddy roadside where she'd met him. Olivia wasn't just wealthy, she was smart. She'd built tech companies, funded startups, sat on corporate boards, but she'd never felt this curious about someone with grease-stained fingers and a truck that sounded like it needed as much fixing as the cars he worked on. Olivia got up, grabbed her laptop, and started searching. She didn't know his name, but she remembered the logo on his shirt, Tommy's Auto and Repair. It was a small garage near the edge of town. Her assistant had once called them when her driver's car broke down. That was enough. A few hours later, Olivia drove herself there. Not in her luxury SUV, but in an older sedan she kept for errands. She didn't want to show up as the woman with money. She wanted to see how he acted when he thought she was just ordinary. The garage was small, a single bay. An old radio played classic rock from inside. Tools lined the wall, oil stained the floor, and outside sat 3 waiting cars. Olivia pulled in, stepped out, and instantly saw him. Jack. He was under the hood of an old Ford, sleeves rolled up again, humming along to the music. He didn't notice her at first, not until she cleared her throat gently. He turned, surprised, wiping sweat from his brow. His face lit up in recognition, but he didn't smile like someone seeing a millionaire. He smiled like someone seeing a familiar face. "You again," he said, walking over. "Everything okay with the car?" Olivia nodded. "Yes, actually. I came to say thank you again. I felt bad driving off without getting your name." Jack chuckled, tossing his rag onto a nearby bench. "Name's Jack Mercer, and you're welcome." She offered her hand. "Olivia." They shook hands, firm but brief. Jack tilted his head slightly, curiosity showing. "You drove all the way out here just to say thanks?" Olivia hesitated for a moment, then said, "Well, and maybe see if you'd like to grab coffee sometime. As a thank you, nothing more." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to get coffee with a guy who smells like motor oil most days?" She laughed softly. "I've had worse company, and I like people who don't pretend to be something they're not." Something about the way she said it caught Jack off guard, but he nodded. "All right then, I finish at 5. That evening, they sat in a quiet corner of a small local cafe. Nothing fancy, just 2 mismatched mugs, a dim lamp between them, and the scent of fresh cinnamon in the air. Jack talked about growing up in town, how he'd inherited the garage from his uncle, how he never liked the idea of leaving. He believed good things could be built slowly, right where you are. Olivia listened closely, speaking little of her own life. She let him talk, watching how his eyes flickered when he spoke about engines like they had personalities, how he fixed things not just because it was his job, but because it gave people one less worry. He didn't know he was sitting across from a woman who could buy a dozen garages like his without blinking. And for once, Olivia didn't want him to know. But feelings, real ones, have a way of sneaking up when you least expect them. What began as coffee turned into weekly dinners, long walks after closing hours, and late-night talks outside the garage under flickering lights. Jack was always honest, always kind. He never tried to be impressive, and yet Olivia had never been more impressed by anyone. Weeks passed. One night, Jack sat beside her on the hood of her car, gazing at the stars. His voice was quiet when he said, "You ever feel like the world expects you to be something, but you just want to be yourself?" She turned her head toward him. Every day. He looked at her with a softness in his eyes. "I don't know much about you, Olivia, but you've got something about you. Something strong. I don't know what it is, but it's real." Her heart beat a little faster. She wanted to tell him everything, but she was afraid that the moment he found out who she really was, he might look at her differently, and that thought terrified her more than anything, because for the first time in a long time, she didn't want to be a millionaire. She just wanted to be a woman sitting beside a man who saw her for exactly who she was. And somehow, that mattered more than all the money in the world. But secrets have a way of catching up, and Olivia's was just one wrong moment away from being exposed. It was a warm Friday evening when everything changed. The rain had long since passed, leaving the streets damp but cool, with the faint scent of wet earth lingering in the air. Olivia sat in her car, parked across from Jack's garage, her fingers nervously tapping the steering wheel. She had been planning this moment for days, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure if she was ready. She glanced at her phone. A text from her assistant popped up. "Olivia, I've scheduled a meeting for you with investors next week. We need your signature on the contract by tomorrow morning." She sighed, shutting the phone off. The corporate world, her world, was always waiting, but right now it felt like it was miles away. Jack's truck was still parked outside the garage. He was finishing up a repair under the hood of a car. He looked calm, focused, completely unaware of the storm that was brewing inside Olivia. She stepped out of the car, took a deep breath, and made her way to the garage. Jack looked up as she approached, his face lit up in that familiar, easy smile. "Hey, didn't expect to see you here tonight." She smiled back, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I just wanted to talk to you about something." Jack wiped his hands on a rag, stepping away from the car. "Everything okay?" Olivia nodded, though her heart was pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment where everything could change. "Yeah, but there's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you a long time ago." Jack's expression softened. "What's going on, Olivia?" She hesitated. For the first time, the secret felt too heavy, too suffocating. But she couldn't keep it hidden anymore. Not from him. Not from the man who had shown her more kindness than anyone in her world ever had. "Jack." She paused, looking down at the ground, her hands shaking. "I'm not who you think I am." He frowned, stepping closer. "What do you mean?" "I'm not just a woman who enjoys coffee and small talk with a mechanic." She looked him in the eyes, finally letting the truth spill out. "I'm Olivia Hart. I'm the owner of Hart Technologies. I'm worth millions, more than you can imagine. I've kept it all hidden because I don't want people to see me as my money. I wanted to be just me." There. She said it. It was out. For a long moment, there was only silence. Jack didn't speak, didn't even move. He stared at her, his eyes unreadable, as though he were trying to process what she had just said. Olivia felt her heart sink. This was it, the moment she had feared. He was going to walk away. He was going to think she was some shallow, pretentious, rich woman. But then Jack did something unexpected. He stepped forward, his hand reaching out, not in anger or judgment, but with a gentleness that made Olivia's breath catch. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Olivia," he said softly, his voice low and steady. "I didn't care who you were before. I care about who you are now. I like you. Not because of your money, not because of your name, but because of you." Her eyes filled with tears, a rush of emotion she hadn't been prepared for. She had thought her wealth would change everything, but instead it was his honesty, his kindness that had turned her world upside down. "I was afraid," she whispered, "afraid that if you knew, you'd think I was just like everyone else, someone who was only interested in power and status." Jack smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "I don't care about any of that, Olivia. I've spent my life fixing things. Cars, broken engines, people's lives. But what you need to know is, I see you. Not the money, not the businesswoman. I see you. The woman who helped me understand that I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not." She let out a shaky breath, realizing that everything she had feared, everything she had built up in her mind, hadn't been real. The next few weeks passed by in a blur. Olivia's world, once centered on business meetings and investment portfolios, had taken on a new rhythm. She spent time with Jack, visiting the garage after hours, helping him with small tasks, and learning about the world he lived in, where success wasn't measured in dollars, but in effort, in honesty, in the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. She still couldn't quite let go of her wealth. There were meetings, deadlines, contracts she couldn't ignore. But for the first time, she didn't let those things define her. When she was with Jack, she was just Olivia. And Jack, well, he was starting to see his life through a new lens too. He had always known the value of hard work, but now he understood the importance of balance, the quiet joy of being with someone who wasn't focused on the next deal, the next contract, someone who saw the value in the little things. But Olivia's secret was never far from her thoughts. She couldn't help but wonder, would Jack still look at her the same way if he knew just how powerful she was? Could a man like him ever truly see her as an equal? Or would the difference in their worlds always be too much? The question hung over her like a shadow, and with every passing day, it grew harder to ignore. The days turned into weeks, and Olivia found herself more and more wrapped up in the simple moments she shared with Jack. Yet, with every laugh they shared, every quiet evening spent in his small apartment, she felt the weight of her secret pressing down on her. She wanted to tell him everything, to let him see the full picture of her life. But every time she tried to bring it up, doubt held her back. She had come to love him in ways she hadn't thought possible. Jack's world was a far cry from hers, his hands calloused from years of hard work, his jeans stained with grease and oil. Yet somehow, he made her feel more alive than any meeting or high-profile event ever had. With him, there were no facades, no walls, just truth. And it was that truth that kept her up at night, wondering how much longer she could keep up the charade. But there was another truth she couldn't ignore. Jack deserved to know the truth. He deserved to see her, all of her, the way she was, without the filters or the pretensions she had surrounded herself with. She couldn't live with the fear of losing him because of something that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the streets of the city, Olivia knew it was time. She had to tell him. She drove to the garage where Jack was working, the familiar hum of the engines and the smell of motor oil filling the air. She saw him leaning over the hood of a car, his shirt clinging to his back as he worked, completely unaware of her presence. She stood there for a moment, watching him, her heart heavy. When he turned around and saw her standing there, his face softened into that same warm smile she had grown to love. But this time, she didn't smile back. She couldn't. "Olivia, everything okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. She took a deep breath, stepping toward him. "Jack, I need to tell you something something I should have told you a long time ago." He wiped his hands on a rag, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What's going on?" She paused, trying to gather her thoughts, but the words came easily. "I've been hiding something from you. I've been scared to tell you because I didn't think you would accept me. I thought maybe, just maybe, the life I have would change the way you see me. But the truth is, Jack, I want you to see me for who I am." He raised an eyebrow, clearly confused. "Olivia, I don't understand. What's going on?" "I'm Olivia Hart. I own Hart Technologies." She took a deep breath. "I'm worth millions of dollars. I've built my life around my business, but I didn't want you to know that part of me. I wanted to be just me, not the woman with all the wealth and power, just the woman who cares about you." For a long time, there was nothing but silence between them. Olivia's heart pounded in her chest, and she feared the worst, that he would walk away, that everything they had built would come crumbling down. But then Jack spoke. His voice was steady, calm. "Olivia, you're still the same woman I met. The woman who stood in the rain to help me with my broken car, who shared her lunch with me when I was hungry. That's who you are. Not your wealth, not your business. You." He stepped closer to her, his eyes locking with hers. "I don't care about all that. I care about you. Just you." Tears welled in her eyes as relief washed over her. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could breathe again. Jack wasn't just accepting her. He was seeing her, all of her, and that was all she had ever wanted. Olivia reached out, taking his hand in hers. "Thank you, Jack. Thank you for seeing me." Jack smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "I think it's you who's been seeing me all along. Not just the mechanic, but the man underneath the grease and the tools. And that's why I love you." It was in that moment, standing in the soft glow of the fading sunlight, that Olivia realized how much her life had changed. She had found something more valuable than money, more important than business deals. She had found love, true love, with a man who didn't need anything from her except the person she was. And in return, he gave her a life she had never imagined. One that was full of honesty, simplicity, and a love that money could never buy. The world around them might have been full of distractions and pressures, but in each other, they had found something priceless. And as the days turned into months, they continued to build their lives together, proving that true happiness doesn't come from wealth or status. It comes from the people who see us, love us, and accept us for who we truly are. And so, as you listen to this story today, remember, sometimes the greatest treasures in life are the simplest ones. Love, kindness, and the courage to be yourself, no matter what the world thinks. If you enjoyed this story, and you believe in the power of real connections and the simple joys of life, please consider subscribing to Stories of Hope. Share this message with your loved ones, and always remember, no matter how complicated life may seem, it's the little things that make it worth living. Thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.